how good did you do on the exam? Just to frame it, we'll go to the end of the story, then we'll walk us through it. So did you just skate by or did you do really well? How'd it go?
So with PMI's new exam, instead of the five areas that they focus on now, it's the three new domain. So when I got my exam report, I got 2 out of 3 above target. And then the last area is on target. It was very close in getting that third above target, but I'm happy with how I did this time.
That is awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk through your story. Everybody out there's got a different PMP story. What is your kind of short version of your story to get to the accelerator?
Right. So before I found your program, I tried to do my own studying and, I was trying to rush through taking my exam before PMI changed their new exam.
Mhm.
And I spent, quite a bit of time really pushing that exam back and back and back because work got so busy and I don't really have a motivation to study. Um, I took my very first exam in December, just before they changed it. I did not pass. It took a day to kind of really soak through what had happened and really how can I study better. And when I started to look into ways that I can improve my studying, um, I actually looked up some podcasts in terms of what can help me, and that's where I came across your platform.
Hey.
And I really felt very motivated by the way that you taught through the materials. I was very curious as to someone like me that usually not quite motivated and study on my own,
Yeah.
what I can achieve out of this accelerator. And I'm so glad that I did. So it took me a while to get to where I am today,
Mhm.
but I think it requires a combination of good mixture into it.
That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. And I love the fact, well, you're open and honest. You say, hey, I didn't pass. No big deal.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we stub our toe. It's not a big
hmm
deal. And then you kind of took a step back and said, hey, I got to look at how I'm studying. So what
hmm
was wrong beforehand? What was wrong with your studying previous?
I I just didn't know where to start. I mean, the pin bucket's pretty thick. It's pretty scary. So to go through a very dry material of 700 pages is quite challenging. And that's just not how I learn, right? I learn by understanding how things work, hands-on, and really see the concept in front of me. So for me to go through that pin buck was very challenging, and I just didn't know where to start. And one of the thing that many people told me to do was data dump.
Mm.
Memorize the formula, memorize the concept, memorize how, things connect, like, things work and definitions of it. And that's what I did in my first exam in December. Was I spent a good 10 minute at the time, the very first time when I took my exam, just to kind of data dump, write everything that I remember, what I know. But
Right.
looking back, I didn't even use that during my exam. So
Yeah.
I know I was studying, in the wrong way, and I needed guidance. And I think that's in every student, they need to know how they can benefit and learn that's best for them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, from the moment that you signed up, like, I mean, we talked about your backstory, but it was pretty apparent to me. I know that you're talking about motivation and stuff, but it's pretty apparent to me that you were going to do really well if you put the work in. Like, I don't know. I saw, like, you wanted to do this. You had kind of like some basic logic behind you. You were pretty smart and you weren't going to take no for an answer in a good way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you got into the program, like, is what was the studying like? Was there a transition to go from like data dump mentality to, hey, let's try to learn? Was that difficult for you?
It wasn't difficult for me because I think the way that you've laid out the module makes logical sense. Sure, some people are very, stuck to their way of studying, and I think you put it in a good way. Is you just gotta start on a fresh page, right? Forget what you've learned and really just start from the very first step. Looking through the videos and following those module would logically flow into what you already know. So for me, it was a very easy transition because I have a pretty decent background in terms of understanding how project works, and just because of my day-to-day work. But having that in addition to the module method did help a lot, and it was very easy for me to transition into the accelerator.
That's cool. That's cool. And so I noticed one of the big things I noticed when I was like, oh, she's gonna pass, like immediately we need to take this thing now, was when you started on the coaching calls, um, jumping in and kind of like, hey, I'll take it from here, Scott. Like, and I didn't have to say anything. You were kind of like not only just answering questions with students, but you were
Mm.
facilitating them through their thought process. Did you realize you were doing that or what?
I realized after you pointed out to me, but I think a big part of my success is it's you have to participate in these
Yeah.
calls. It's okay. It's sometimes it's a large groups, mid-sized group, small group, which makes it
Yeah.
awkward for some people. But it's a safe environment. Everyone is so encouraging. Everyone's there to help out each other, and that's how I felt. It was okay for me to jump in because I know my colleagues and my classmates, they would appreciate that. And sometimes it's good to understand how others go through their thinking process, which
Yeah.
makes you realize that, oh, okay, I didn't see it that way. So I think being involved and actively participating in those coaching calls and hard questions made easy calls are very helpful. And,
Hmm.
when you do step in and start facilitating those conversations, you tend to realize that, okay, I seem like I know what's going on and I can explain it, which means you yourself, have gone through the material and you know how to address certain questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's beautiful. And so when I see that in a student, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be really, really good. Was there ever a time when you started to explain it and you realized, oh, maybe I don't, I mean, you're pretty darn good at explaining stuff, but like that I didn't understand it well enough to get through, or maybe they just weren't ready to receive the information. Did you ever have that kind of experience as you were kind of like evolving yourselves in those calls or anything?
Yeah, I've definitely have those moments, and I can thinking back, it's more so in the beginning of the weeks,
Hmm.
when I'm not super confident in addressing those questions or explaining material. But it comes down to working with different people, right? Some people may take a different approach and may take their own time in understanding the concept.
Hmm.
But like I said, the community is such a fun and safe community where it allows you to be patient with each other, and sometimes vice versa as well, right? When you're stuck on a certain concept, your classmates are there to help you go through that as well, which is fine. Like if you don't
Hmm.
understand it, you don't get that in the moment, then that's something you put down in your evaporating data dump,
There
and
you go.
you
There you
go
go.
back and you spend time with the materials that you have and really go through that until you're comfortable in explaining that yourself.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And so let me ask you, the new exam.
Yes.
Everybody's freaking out. We're technically 10 for 10 on the new exam, so we're
Mhm.
100% so far. Pretty good. What was it like? Were you had taken it pre and post? Were there giant differences in the question structures? Was there anything giant difference?
Now that I've seen the old exam and the new exam, I can definitely share my first person experiences that
Yeah.
honestly the content, the way that PMI approach you with the question is still the same. They makes it challenging, they makes it tough, but through your accelerator, that's where you prepare me to face those tough questions. When it comes to the content, sure, it's slightly different because they've included a bit more emphasis on agile and sometimes on hybrid related questions.
Yeah.
So you really need to be good at um, deciding, is this in a waterfall or an agile questions.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, slightly from the content, the way PMI asked you the question is still the same. Regardless, thinking back with the old exam, I would have used the same technique as well. The
Hmm.
really only difference is you got 180 questions instead of 200. You get two 10-minute break. You get a bit more interactive questions. So not
Hmm.
just your multiple choice, you get multiple answers. You get
Hmm.
drag and drop. You got, click in the, area of the graph. But regardless of how that question is, the content slightly different, but
Hmm.
the knowledge is still the same. Like as long as you um, go into the exam with confident and you know the material well, that's
Mhm.
where I feel I did really well. It's, this time around I didn't even use data dump.
Mhm.
And I felt really different going into the exam this time. I felt prepared. I look forward to it. It was something that I'm like, oh, agile. I like it. I enjoy it.
And you had
Um,
never seen Agile before, right?
no, I don't come from an agile world. I've heard about it before, but sometimes it's always very foreign to me.
Yeah.
So the very first time that I've really gone through agile was your modules and your videos that you've prepared, which I loved because I think you've made the concept to understand it so easy. And it's just very easy to go through the material. So, my knowledge of agile was really based on your videos, and of course, the agile book as well.
Yeah, sure. That's a good one. Yeah. That's awesome. What is your favorite part about, like, as you're getting into like learning about Agile
Yeah.
from a high level, or if you have specifics, doesn't matter. What do you like about Agile? What resonates with you?
I think it makes sense. I think agile in a project world makes sense. Obviously, depending on the type of work you do, but
Yeah.
I like it because it has that flexibility where it's really based on those principles and the values of what agile really is about. So, from a day-to-day work perspective, agile makes sense to me, and
Mhm.
it's quite fun. I think there's a lot of uh, ways you can go about doing agile, and there's so many different types of agile as well.
Right, right. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I mean, the fun part is that a lot of people come to this and they're super duper scared. They're like, I've done my existence of regular old project management.
Mm,
I don't know how to code. I don't
mm,
know. I've never worked with a developer. Like, I don't know how to use my phone. Like, they think that's agile, but in reality, that's just the manifestation of how these methodologies came about. Like
mhm,
the
mhm,
need for constant and iterative change and deliver value and focusing on constantly delivering value to the product. That just seems to be environments where it manifested.
mhm.
So that's really awesome that you were able to take to it and kind of got excited about it. So that's good for me. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Now at your job, now you went through all the PMP stuff. You went through like how you solve problems, building your confidence for the exam and succeeding.
Mhm.
Have you been approaching your job, regular old job, any differently, or anything happened different since you passed the exam?
Well, what's interesting is when I, started your accelerator, I also started a new job. So it was a
Okay.
good opportunity for me to apply, what I've learned into my new job. And really, when issue comes up, or when a new project starts up, or when I'm taking over a project,
Mhm.
there are moments in my day-to-day job where I'm like, oh, okay, well, based on what I've learned last night, I'm gonna, do this, or approach it slightly different. I'm a bit more aware,
That's good.
and of course it's something that, earning a PMP, it's something you want to use it in your
Mhm.
day-to-day life and really apply it wherever you go. So yes, there were moments, and there are still moments where I'm kind of referring back to what I've
Yeah.
learned into my everyday.
That's awesome. Yeah, and like I've been doing these like interviews with Lee Lambert, the guy that founded the
Yes.
PMP. And so it's been cool listening to like how it got there. And then one of the things that he and I talked about this earlier today in our new one is that he's like, the people that are really successful as project managers are those that are like, yes, I've achieved the PMP. That's awesome. Now let me like get in there, take some
Mm,
chances, take some risks, refine it and learn and become, he didn't say these words artists, but I said like, you become like an artist after a while where you're like, you can
mm,
paint fundamentally, but now you're going to like experiment and do these things and kind of build. So I'm excited to see how you evolve, and I'm sure you're going to do excellent. So that's
thank
super
you.
awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Well, okay. So I'm sure there are burning questions out there, people.
Mm,
They're like, okay, I've been studying for a while. I'm
mm.
really, really worried. I don't feel confident. All these things. I get these calls all day long. For those individuals who want to pass, just don't know how to do it, what would be your advice for them about like kind of how to proceed now to kind of break out of that mold?
Right. And that's also a very common questions I get from my peers as well. How do I know I'm ready? when
Yeah.
would I be ready? I also had the same questions myself, but I find throughout my journey is as you go through the material and you practice the questions and the test, which is very important,
Hmm.
not just to build your endurance, but as you practice and you go through the questions, you tend to have a sense of, am I ready or not? Am I
Hmm.
able to walk through the questions? Am I able to explain where I am, what I should be doing?
Hmm.
So that naturally comes. And for those that require some guidance in terms of, how to prepare yourself, I find myself doing the exam battle plan. Something that
Okay.
you've introduced in the module really helped is you need to really set down a plan for yourself, what you want to achieve a week before your exam, 2 weeks before your exam.
Hmm.
I myself also did the same. Um, 2 weeks before my exam, this is my study plan. I'm going to practice questions, X number of questions each day. These are the topics that it's still on my evaporating data dump sheet that I still need to go through, and really able to understand the concept. Your seven flow is amazing. I think I
Hmm.
went through a couple times with that video, and it really
Okay.
helped me to really think about um, the material. So
Hmm.
aside from being confident with the material, I think on the other side of the spectrum is your mental state, whether
Ah.
or not that you're able to go through a 4-hour exam. I myself also went through a cycle. A couple of days before my exam, I didn't felt good. I felt like maybe I should like reschedule my exam. Like I
True.
don't think I'm ready. And it wasn't a good feeling. But how I've gone through that was, some of the material videos that we introduced about, being mentally prepared.
Right.
um, I wrote down, I normally don't do this, but I normally, I wrote down how I was feeling at the moment.
Yeah.
And then I just wrote everything down. And then I wrote next to it is, what am I going to do about it? If I'm feeling worried that I'm not ready, but at the same time, I'm able to, go through the questions, answer them really good,
Hmm.
and really just writing out my thoughts.
Hmm.
So that was very important for me to prepare myself. The other tip I would say is I think practicing the questions is very important. Definitely do a couple of the full exam, because you can't really just go into an exam and expect your body, your mental state to be okay with a 4-hour exam. You
Hmm.
really need to build the endurance. And I myself, I definitely felt the differences. I was physically and mentally, I was performing well over the 4-hour course. And I think a lot to do with that, it's because of the endurance I've built up leading up to my exam.
Hmm.
So going back to, am I ready or not with going into exam, is you need to have a sense of feeling that, okay, I feel not bad. I feel confident. And it's something you look forward to, not something that you're dreading to do. um, sure, the 7-day accelerator, I've heard you got students completed in within 7 days or less than two
True.
weeks.
Yeah.
I think it's important for everyone to understand that it's you know yourself best. So
Yes.
you need to know, you give yourself enough time to prepare for that. I mean, it's a solid 7-day accelerator. Doesn't mean you have to do it in 7 day. Take your
True.
own time, and I think um, you just need to go through that journey and and have a battle plan ready. Have a plan, just like any project, planning a project
Mhm.
for your exam. Mental state is very important, and that's something I've noticed during this time taking the new exam.
That's awesome. Well, Bonita, that was really, really good. I think you helped out a ton of people. So I really, really appreciate you sharing. It was really, really awesome. And this will not be the last time that we chat. So we're proud of you. You did a great
Thank you.
job. And thank you.
Thank you. No, I thank you to both yourself and my accountability coach. I think it's been an amazing journey. I don't think I would ever, I found a lot of joy in doing this. It's not something that I'm like, oh, it's study again. Like I actually look
Yeah,
forward to every week's call, because that's where I can be again in a safe space where I
yeah.
can, just share what I know and take away something and learn from those calls as well.
That's awesome. Well,
Uh,
that is success. So we really appreciate it. And we will talk to you soon. Thank you, man.
Thanks, God.